Well, hello there. Welcome back to the Marshall Report here at Long Beach Comic and Horror Con. I've been talking to folks all day. Some of the great guests they have here from movies, TV, comics, everything. Right now, I'm here with the writer and director of The Collection. Here we go, Patrick Melton, Marcus Dunstan. So, tell us a little bit about The Collection. You're bringing doing a lot in the horror realm these days, from what I gather.
Absolutely. With The Collection, we were given an opportunity to play with all the toys. And the first movie, The Collector, was a relatively modest in scale, cruel film. And it was about a bad guy running into a worse guy, and a smackdown from hell began. Well, with this, we wanted to reverse the impulse that you were given at the end, the emotion. At the end of the first Collector, there was almost a note of despair. Mm-hmm. As a father and husband and thief, as it were, ended up being stolen by a far more nefarious criminal. So with The Collection, armed with enough of a nice budget to make an action movie as well as a horror movie, we wanted to give the audience the idea and the feeling that they were seeing a bully get his ass kicked for 90 minutes. And thanks to, returning player Josh Stewart, yes. Thanks to newcomer sensation Emma Fitzpatrick, yes. I think that the Collection is 10 times the film The Collector was. The Collector was the pup. This is the wolf.
Yeah, well, for folks who might not be familiar with The Collector and the sort of predecessor to this here, can you give us a little bit of a background on the universe you sort of created here with The Collector and The Collection?
Go ahead.
Well, the Collector, that was, when we set out to do that one, we were trying to make a very contained horror movie with like limited characters and a limited location, because we know we had a certain budget.
Right.
And, it was just sort of the result of the movies we saw as a kid. We grew up on the slashers, the Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, all those types of things. And so we wanted to do sort of a twist on the genre, where it could have been a home invasion movie. It could have just been this family's here and this mass killer shows up and he does bad things, right? But we added the X factor, which was this guy Arkin, who isn't supposed to be there, and then he has this ruse where he gets to know these families, finds somebody wants to steal from them, waits for them to go out of town, goes inside, steals it. And he's doing it right in the middle of that when he hears something downstairs, and he realizes that family that he befriends and knows is locked up in the basement, and there's also this killer inside the house, and now he has to save them and become the hero. And so, we used a lot of the tropes of like the slasher type movies, and so that was the first movie. And so, but for the sequel, naturally you're gonna have to go a little bit bigger. And the last movie ended with
you always have to go bigger. We know these rules in horror movies.
and we know them as well. We grew up with them as well. It's like the body count has to be doubled.
And far too often, a sequel's budget is less or the same as the first. Where in this case, we were somehow, we're given 5 times the budget. Sam McCurdy is our director of photography, who comes to us from The Descent and from the fine battle episodes of Game of Thrones this last season. And we were able to shoot this movie on 35mm anamorphic film, which at this day and age for horror, it's consistently more digital. It's if anything, it's a found footage, and sometimes budget just doesn't allow spectacle. Well, this time we are machine guns, we are explosions, we are action characters trapped in a horror dynamic.
And we shot in Atlanta, which we had never shot in before, but we showed up and we met the line producer. His name is Tom Luce, and he's the line producer for The Walking Dead. Okay. So we actually had the entire crew for The Walking Dead between season 1 and season 2. And we shot when they were off, and so there's like a lot of locations in our movie that if you look at it from a different angle, it's like a distinct set piece.
There should be a zombie there.
Well, yeah, and it's like, and so we go to all these locations, and Tom Luce would be like, yeah, if we look at it this way, that's the doorway where the zombies were trying to get in episode 4. And we're like, oh, look at that! And so there's moments like that throughout the whole movie.
In fact, we have part of the layer of The Collection was built in the CDC from the finale of the first season. And big credit to Tom Luce for stretching every dollar into 100, because it just gave us so much room to play. Far too often as well, you'll have a budget that is eaten up by things that don't make it to the screen, such as ego. Where in this case, a hand on anything religious, I can tell you every single bloody penny made it out there. And so the feel and the reward of that was, wow, we've got something that is kind of like on a blockbuster scale, but plays by hardcore horror rules. So our hands were not tied with this movie at all creatively, so we could lie to the audience. We could say, no, yeah, why don't you come in and see this movie about young people? Oh, not anymore. Now the characters from the Frankenheimer movie come wandering in, and what's happened to their kids, and boy, they're pissed, and now it's war.
I love your description of the action movie encapsulated by a horror movie sort of thing.
Yeah, horror movie rules are the last intimidating factor for action movie characters, in the sense that in the 80s, when the uber villain was sort of created, best personified by Hans Gruber in Die Hard, he was eloquent, he was well-dressed, but he was not viciously scary. If anything, he was amusing and smart in that way, and yet the movie itself is such a wonderful machine, and Bruce Willis is actually the slasher, gorily taking out one at a time. So what we wanted to do was, using the same lenses from that movie, give that personification to a horror dynamic, and let the villain be, when he pulls a knife, you know someone's going to get cut. And yet you bring in our John McClane is getting thrashed, and if he doesn't break something, everybody's going to be broken.
Well, when can people see the collection?
All right, the collection is coming to you, the real Black Friday. That's November 30th, Friday.
You did that so well. That was really, you were practicing that.
Thank you.
Well, I do want to ask you about a couple of other projects that are not related to the collection, but just briefly touch on here. We were talking earlier about Pacific Rim. You guys were brought on late in that stage to do some writing on that, right?
Yes, we were the last writers on it, and we were there for like the month before it went into production. So we were there for like the table read and things like that. We could see all the locations, and yeah, it's going to be a monster. It's going to be fantastic. Guillermo del Toro is a genius, and it's going to be pretty great.
It's going to be a tidal wave of fantastic.
that seems accurate. And the other one I want to ask you about was God of War. Are you guys still working on God of War? Where are things at with that?
Right in the middle of it. We're redoing the script for God of War. The first draft was a guy named David Self. You know, he did like Road to Perdition. Really great writer. But the thing was, it was written in 2006, like before these sort of sword and sandal resurgence of like Clash of the Titans and 300, and then that type of thing. And so a lot of those ideas were in the newer movies, and so you can't do it again. Right. You know, you can't say, "Whoa!" but it was in the video game first. But
suddenly he's fighting Zeus again, and suddenly all these things.
So
other than that, we've pretty much been gag ordered on God of War, because I got to tell you, the secrets and the twists and everything that's coming from that, good Lord, I hope it tears its way to a screen, because it's going to be wonderful.
Well, we're pretty close. I mean, we're working on the script now, you know, and so once we're done with that, then this discussions will be about who's going to direct it and who's going to play Kratos, which is pretty intimidating.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for chatting with me here on the Marshall Report.
Thanks.
This is great. Looking forward to the collection, and everyone knows now when they can see the collection as well.
Yes.
November you want to do anything again?
Yeah. Tweet it, Facebook it, drag strangers in from the street. We got to support horror this holiday season, so we get it again.
You're good at that.
All right.
And thank you guys for joining us.